Hi there, this is Tony, and we're back on the bench. And this evening, we're going to be doing a walkthrough service, as I call it, on this Ryobi B2 ball bearing spinning reel. And what I mean by walkthrough is I've actually already serviced this reel. I've been working on a whole box full of spinning reels lately, and just for the purposes of saving time in these videos, we're going to go through all the steps of the take apart, the cleaning, the lube, and the reassembly. But just being that all the cleaning part has already been done and all the lubing part has been done, I'm just going to walk you through those steps with the hopes that it's just going to save some time with these videos here. So we're going to start with taking off the handle. It comes off real easily. Make sure you clean off this shaft when you take this out, and then re-lube it with some grease when you go to put it back in. I might actually put a little dab on there when we go to put that back. Take our spool off. Real simple. This is a graphite design reel, so it's really light in weight, which kind of makes it nice. So in order to get our rotor off, though, we're definitely going to have to get into the side plate here. So we got 4 screws in these positions here. But this is actually a nice little reel, and I've worked on a number of different Ryobis. I've worked on some Silver Cloud editions like the SX5. The GX50 is actually a model that I have. It's a surf casting reel, and it's actually quite nice. So they're not bad little reels, and Ryobi's been making them for quite a number of years now. We're going to get these 4 screws out here. And we're going to have a look at the innards here. So you got a plate that comes off. If there's any excess grease built up in here, you want to clean that off. Okay. And now you want to make note of the orientation of these pieces and parts here. So you've got a bushing here. All right. And then you've got this cam here, and it has to go this way, all right? It can't be upside down or anything like that. It has to be in that direction. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of gently lay these parts out, and I might apply a little bit of grease when we go to put all this back on here. Okay, now this is our main gear here. Okay, and as you can see, it's been cleaned up. Note that there is another bushing that rests down on the other side of the housing. Okay, and it just kind of attaches itself to the shaft here, the main gear, and that's fine. Okay, so we're just going to set that off to the side there, like so. Okay, so now we've got a pinion gear in there, and a pinion shaft or axle shaft, and then we've got our block down here. Now that locks and holds the shaft in place. So in order to get to that, you got to pull this pin out, and then you got to take that little set screw out down here in order to gain access to the axle shaft or pinion shaft. Take that set screw out, and then you should be able to lift up this tab right here. And once you do that, your pinion gear, pinion shaft should come out like so. Okay, now note with this shaft, if it's rusted or corroded or anything, all right, you want to take some 4-0 steel wool to that. You want to clean it up real good. I just do that by default, irregardless of what it looks like. You want these surfaces to be nice and clean and smooth as possible. Okay, so this is one little thing to note. You want to clean up your block the best that you can, okay, and get any debris or gunk off of it. Okay, and this tab needs to stay with this block. Okay, so you got to make sure that that doesn't go anywhere. I mean, it can come off, but it has to go back on there. So actually just found a little piece of something caught up in there. Okay, so you just want to keep those pieces together so that you understand the orientation of them when you go to put it back. Okay. Now, we're at the point where we can take our rotor off. Now, I highly recommend that when you go to do this, you keep your thumb underneath this pinion gear here, because what's going to happen once you take that off is the pinion gear is going to want to drop through the ball bearing that's hiding underneath, okay? And there's some other pieces and parts there that you want to be mindful of, okay? 12 mil open end wrench work fine for this. Okay, give it a couple of turns, and then you should be able to do it by hand. You know, once again, this reel's already been serviced, and so that's why you see a lot of fresh grease and stuff like that, but I'm just walking you through the steps. If there's any built-up sand or dirt or gunk underneath the rotor, you want to clean that out, of course. Now, I'm holding this under here. Note the orientation of these pieces and parts here, okay? It's pretty important that these pieces go back into position the way that they came. Okay, so I'm slowly going to pull this piece off first here, and note that there's it's got these little prongs here that kind of stick out. It's a little difficult to see on camera here, but that's what that looks like. Okay, and then you've got this washer here, and it's actually got special grooves in it. Okay, these pieces have to go back this way. All right, so just be mindful of that. And there's also another bushing under here I'm trying to get out. I'm just going to move my pinion shaft out here slowly, and what's going to happen is this is going to come loose here eventually. So there's another little thin bushing. Okay, and I'm laying these parts out here like this because they have to go back in this order. Okay, there's no way around it. Okay, and then there's our pinion shaft. You want to clean that up real good. Take a toothbrush to it and some WD-40 or some power lube like what I'm using, liquid wrench, whatever you want to use, but you want to clean up all these pieces and parts here real good and scrub them down gently and get all the debris and gunk off of them, okay? You want to clean up the inside of your housing here and get all these little areas cleaned up. This reel was actually quite dirty. It was loaded and loaded with all kinds of old grease here and stuff. You can see on this Q-tip, this is all the stuff that was on there. I kind of suspect that this is not real grease. This looks more like Vaseline, like dried up Vaseline. I gotta say, don't use Vaseline for your reels. Use real greases and real oils that are meant for fishing reels. There's a lot of different brands, a lot of different products out there. I like to use the Penn products, the Precision Oil and Precision Grease. I like to use Real-X a lot. Okay, but don't use anything other than products that are meant for fishing reels. Okay. All right, now that we have access here to our bearing. Now this bearing is actually in good shape, and it's sealed on the top, but it's not on the bottom. And what I learned in taking this reel apart, because I never have worked on this reel before, if you take these two set screws out, you can get the bearing out. I had a hard time doing it, but you know, unless you need to take it out, like if it's really grinding or if it sounds noisy or something like that, you probably don't really have to struggle trying to take it out. All you really need to do is flip it upside down, and then you can actually see, if you look carefully, it's difficult on camera because it's kind of dark right now, but you can actually see underneath, and you'll see the ball bearings under there. Take your Real-X oil or whatever reel oil you're using and flood those ball bearings just with a little bit of oil and call it a day. That's all you have to do. It's real simple. Okay, so having said that, we're going to put all of our pieces and parts back together here, and we're just going to dab a little bit more precision grease here on our pinion shaft and pinion gear as we put this back into position. Okay, but that's how you can service the ball bearing on a reel like this. You know, when it's exposed underneath like that, that's really all you need to do. Okay, so we're going to put our bushing back into position like so. You know, if you want, you can apply a little bit of oil to this pinion shaft here just to kind of help these pieces slide back into, you know, position and get into the proper grooves and whatnot. Okay, and then we're going to put our spring gear back into place here, like so. Okay. Also note, you want a point of lube you want to do right here on this lever right here. A couple little beads of lube goes a long way right there. Okay. So now we're ready to put our rotor back on. Okay. Once you've inspected all those pieces and parts. Okay. So, if you have the same reel and you need to work on it, you can watch this video and get the steps that you need. And to be quite frank, a lot of vintage spinning reels of this generation work very similar to this, and so there's a lot of models out there that you can pretty much use these same tactics, and it's going to get you what you need. Don't over tighten that, okay? You don't need to torque it, but you just need to have it snug. Okay. Now the one thing I will note about this reel is it does seem to have a slight little jitter in this rotor. I think that's just simply the way it is. Okay. I don't know why it's like that. I think it's just part of the manufacturing, the way that these pieces and parts go together. But once that gear is set into place, it's not going to be so wiggly like that per se. I think that's just simply the way that it is, and there's not much that you can really do about it. Okay, so we're going to put our block back in here. Now also, before we do that, you want to apply a little bit of blue grease right here in this trough as well as a little bit of oil right here for your anti-reverse lever. Okay. Just one little thing to note, but we're going to put our block kind of back in here, and we need to kind of hold it in position. I find it's not exactly the easiest thing to do. I'll just wait until we're ready to put the shaft in. So clean the shaft up, apply your blue grease up and down like so. You don't have to get carried away with it, just enough. Okay. We're going to slide the shaft back through there, and then we're going to get it lined up with our block. As you can see, this is where it gets a little tricky. But just take your time. These pieces are getting caught up in there. Okay, there we go. So once you get that set, like so, you run your shaft down, and note here that there's these two cutouts here in the shaft, here and down here, and you have to get that block and that tab lined up there properly. Okay, and you need to sink down into the drag stack with your shaft. Okay, that's how this particular reel operates. Okay, and get that lined up with the two lines on the shaft, and then we'll put our set screw in. Do a little bead of oil right here. Get our screw back into position. Take your number 1 Phillips. Okay. It should look something like that. Okay, then don't forget your pin here. Just do a little bit of blue grease on that. Got a little carried away with that one. It seats down, goes all the way down, sits in the trough as it goes up and down. That's all you need to do for that. We'll put our main gear back into position. I'm just going to apply a little bit more blue grease here just because some of it got rubbed off in the process here. There we go. And actually, I find in this situation, putting these pieces back, it helps to just put the bushing back in separate. It just sinks down there in the bottom. It's a little difficult to see, but you can see it's set in there now. Okay, and then you're ready to put your main gear, seat it back into position. Got your cam. You got to line up your cam just right with that rod sticking out there. Put your bushing back on. I like to do a little bead of oil in these screw holes usually. This is a graphite design, so you don't have to worry too much about rust, of course, but it's a good habit to get into, I find. Tighten these down. Okay. So all those are ready to go there. And don't forget to apply a little bit of blue grease here on the shaft here when you go to put that back. Then you can do a little bead of oil for this thread here. Okay, and then put that back on like so. Don't forget to do a little bead of oil right here for your bail spring and keep that lubed up real good. And now we're going to move on to the drag stack. So one little thing to note that I just found that I missed was that there is this little tab spring here, and it rests over a little knob. It sets into this little knob here through that hole, and that's for your drag when you're applying drag, and then you hear that little click. It's just a little click spring basically, but that needs to be lined up, and when you go to take all this apart, it has a tendency to unseat itself and kind of fall out, so you want to seat that back in, okay, when you go to put your side plate back on. So I'm going to do that right now and then pause the video and then come back and we'll finish the drag stack. Okay, so now we're going to get into the drag stack here. I'm going to leave the handle pieces off though for the time being while we do this. So you got a screw down here, Phillips screw that needs to come out. And you want to be very, very careful and do this slowly when you're taking a rear drag system apart like this, or any drag system for that matter, because there's a lot of pieces and parts in there that can have a tendency to just kind of fall out. So I like to kind of spread all these out and put them kind of in order. Okay. And again, I've never had this reel until recently, and so I'm not really familiar with all the design. There's a couple of washers, I believe, hiding in there. So we want to stop here just for a moment. You can see there's another washer that just fell out, but we want to see what these washers are. So it would appear that there are a couple of washers here, really, really thin washers. These guys here, okay. And those rest down in here, I would say. And then there's a thicker tensioning washer Okay, and that's important. I'm going to put that in there. All right, this is all part of the drag stack though, so it's important. These are important pieces. And then you got this bushing, this stainless steel bushing. Okay, and then your drag washers, your drag stack is hiding down there basically. Okay, now there's a couple of different ways you can go about this. One way is to take a pair of needle nose and grab this whole assembly basically, which is probably what I'm going to do. But when you do this, you want to use caution because there's a lot of small pieces and parts here with these washers. Okay, and you don't want to mix them up and lose the order of how they go. One thing we can do to help this is to spin our axle shaft so that it comes up a little higher, basically like that, so we can have a little more to grab at, hopefully. Okay. All right. Now there is a small washer that's embedded all the way down there at the bottom, and it's like a set washer. It's got like a little key in it. It's a little difficult to see in this light, but you can see the shiny part right down there. So that can probably stay. I mean, it looks clean, but if for some reason it doesn't look clean, you know, you want to remove that. Okay, so we got there's a lot of stuff going on here. This is actually a very sophisticated drag system here. So what I want to do is, you know, I want to get these off one by one so that you can see these. So these are keyed, okay, and they're keyed a certain way, all right, and the keys are facing upward in this stack, okay, not downward but upward. Those little knobs there, okay. So that's just, you know, one thing that, you know, you need to make note of. All right, you got a fiber washer, or possibly a Teflon washer actually, and then you got a regular metal washer, and then you got another Teflon washer, and then you got another keyed washer with those keys facing upright, another Teflon, metal, Teflon, keyed, facing up, and then there's just a couple more pieces left here. So you've got a smaller, I'd call these kind of Teflon spacers here basically, and there's one on either side of this of these teeth on this toothed washer here basically. Okay, so that's your drag stack. Okay, but this is for the clicker. Okay, this hits this little clicker here when you turn the when the drag gets turned, it'll hit the little bar that's in there when the drag is being applied, and the spool, you know, pays out line basically when you're fighting a fish. Okay, so those pieces are kind of hard to keep together, but you want to clean all of these here, okay, the best that you can. You don't want to clean them with WD-40 though, or any kind of grease or anything like that. You just want to clean them off with like a paper towel, take a shop towel, and just clean them off real good. All these are really clean, so there's no need to do anything else. Okay, so what I'm going to do here now, I'm going to put these pieces, the star wheel and those spacers, back in. I'm going to leave all this out. And as you can see, I've already lost a washer here, so again, be careful when you're doing this, okay? Set that back down like so. I just give it a little tap with like a little screwdriver if you can. Okay. Pull that back out. Okay, now you can put your keyed washer back in. It has to go back in with the keys facing up, and then your Teflon, and then metal, Teflon. These are actually in really good shape, these washers here. So just give those a little tap. Make sure they seat in there just right. Do metal, Teflon, keyed, the keys facing up. Okay. And there's that. And then you got these pieces here, and these pieces you can just keep stacked in here, and then just roll that on in, and then tighten it the best that you can, because that basically means full drag when you do that, more or less. Okay, and then you're ready to put your drag wheel back on. And what you want to do is, because you've tightened this, you want to set it to 12, which is the maximum on this reel. It could be 10 on a different one, or like a different model, but on this it goes up to 12. Okay, and so you want to line that up, and you want to make sure that you get over this this clicker spring here. Okay, and get this lined up here like so that the 12 is reading when you're holding the reel like this. Okay, and that means max drag basically. Okay, you do that, put your set screw back into position here, and just remember to hold this while you're tightening this, because you don't want to turn the whole thing, the whole wheel. Okay, then you can back off your drag, and in theory it should come back down to around 0 or close to it anyway. All right, and so you got loose drag and you got max drag. Okay, so we'll put our handle back on, and we're going to try this out. We're going to see if it's working good, and hopefully it is, and ready to do some fishing. Snug that up. So we're just going to do the basics here. Anti-reverse is working good, I think. That all looks good there. Try our bail out. I think we fixed that bail problem. Oh, maybe we didn't. Try it one more time here. Okay. I think we'll just do a hair more oil in there, and hopefully that'll take care of that problem. If you find that you're having a stuck bail all the time, it could mean that the bail is actually bent. I think in this case it just needs a little bit extra oil, so that's all good there. That's loose drag. We'll turn it up a little bit here. That's tightening it up a little bit more. That's definitely tightening up a lot more. And then we'll tighten it up even further, and that's really good drag right there. So there you have it. That's the Ryobi B2 ball bearing spinning reel, all serviced and ready to go. So thanks again for watching. This is Tony with Back on the Bench. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more, please subscribe. And we'll see you next time.